Have you ever been that woman that everyone calls strong and felt completely invisible at the same time? Vera Knight knows that woman. She was that woman. And at 68, after a cancer diagnosis cracked her open, she stopped trying to look perfect and actually started living. Doesn't that sound great? Now she helps other women do the same thing, return to themselves, stop managing their lives from a distance, and actually start inhabiting them. She has a new book, The Woman Who Left Herself Behind. And I'm in the middle of reading it, and oh my gosh, I have to tell you, it it's almost like poetry. And it is, more importantly, it's one of the most honest things that I've read in a long time, and I can't wait for you to meet her. So, Vera, thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh my goodness, Yvonne, thank you for having me on the show. I'm super
Oh.
excited to be here.
So you taught the whole book is about self-estrangement, right?
Yeah, well, yes,
Yeah,
basically.
cool. How do you define self-estrangement? And follow-up question, if it isn't too much, before you had language for it, what did that feel like for you?
That's a great place. For over, like you started out when you introduced me, for over 2 decades, I worked in the holistic wellness and fitness world, helping people take care of themselves, learn how to take care of their bodies, and live their lives, right? But when I coached those women for the last 25 years, that was all mindset work and behavior modification. And when I was burning out in that world, I was that high functioning woman who was doing it all, keeping it all together, and nobody knew what was going on inside of me until I completely burned out. I mean, it was crazy being that woman. I would sit with my laptop in the evening trying to write a message to my groups. I had a group called Food Freedom the Game because we were playing life, we were doing all the things, but it wasn't fun anymore, and it was taking me hours to write a little message to them. And then that cancer diagnosis really took me out, and I quit everything and went on this journey of discovery of who I really am because I couldn't live that way anymore. And it was quite traumatic having that experience to break this open in my life because I didn't even know, when you're too stupid to know, right? Just like you just keep going and going and going.
Isn't
How
that
many
all of
women,
us?
right? How many women do that, to
Yeah.
our own detriment? So I burned out and, I actually had a moment there, Yvonne, where I was thinking, like, maybe this is it. Maybe I'll just like settle into this and like let my hair go gray and become my grandmother and almost wait to die. I was like having this conversation with myself, and it was absolutely insane, right? But then God, like, He has another plan. And He said, nope, that's not what's going to happen here. And He changed my journey. And now I help high functioning women come back to themselves. Those women, like you were saying, they look solid on the outside, like I did. They're capable, they're respected, they hold everything together.
There's a person you turn to and you ask for help because who do you ask
Yeah,
for help? You ask a busy person for help,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
But they leave themselves in that moment, and I call it the half-second exit. And you'll recognize it as, you're going to have that conversation or you set out to do something, and then just before you actually do it, that half-second exit where you pull back and we shrink a little and we don't have the conversation that we wanted to have, or we don't do the thing that we wanted to do. We say yes when we want to say no, all of those things. That's the part I call self-estrangement, right? We talk about it in the psychology world, in the medical world, they call it, self-abandonment and all of that. And yeah, it's the same thing. But for me, it's different because once a woman recognizes that moment, she can't unsee it anymore. And what happened to me was I started to have these awarenesses, and it was like, oh my God, there it is again. And then there it is again. And I started to see it. I was doing it all the time, like
Hmm.
leaving myself. And as I saw that and there it is again.
What did
Then,
it look like? Can I just get like, can you give me some specifics of when it would
yeah,
happen?
like I would be in a conversation and, even with a client, and I would want to say like a real true truth, the way I wanted to say it, which is
Yeah.
the way I say it in the book, right? It's pretty like raw in the book. I would temper that voice a little bit to make my words land softer, which,
Uh-huh.
you know what that did? It delayed the progress. Because
Uh,
when we're smoothing it and sugarcoating certain things, it delays our progress because
yeah.
it just keeps us back in the loop. Oh, I'm back in it. I never actually get through it. And if you ask me, the veil that we're standing on, this side of the veil, is so thin. It's transparent. We don't even see that it's there, but it's the half second exit where we step back instead of
Oh.
go through. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
I think so. And if when you talk about the veil, can you talk about what the veil is?
What the veil for each one of us is our own fear, our own limitation, our own programming, the conditioning of the mind that keeps us thinking if I say that or do that or show up as who I am, all the things that we're talking about in the world. I'm too much, I'm too, maybe I'm too bold, maybe I'm too emotional, you're always too something, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the veil. And when we could step through that, we see that on the other side of the veil is the truth of who I actually am. And when I show up in that voice and that energy, people respond to me different. They respond to me because it's like there's a truth there that they actually recognize in themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
So I want to go back because you said that you were like kind of thinking, oh, maybe I'm just gonna let my hair go gray and I'm just gonna die. And God said, no, there's more for you. What did that look like and why are you focused on the high functioning capable woman? I mean, other than maybe that because that was you, was that it, or what was the moment
because
where you were like, oh, I have work to do here?
they're everywhere. We're everywhere. you
Mm.
know you know if you think, what is a high functioning woman? It's not
Every single one
necessarily
of us.
right.
Right, we
Sometimes we
don't
have
see
this
ourselves
image.
that way.
Well, that's the point. High functioning women, I used to think high functioning women were the CEOs,
Right,
the
me too.
C-suite women who were, making all the money and doing all the things. They were high functioning. But then, no, every mama is a high functioning woman. Any woman who's keeping herself, her house, her kids, her husband, her significant other, whoever it is, we're all high functioning in that regard. And when we're ordinary women, and I mean, I don't have a ton of money behind me that I could hire people to do the things. I have to do it all. I had to take my kids, I had to pick them, just like all the other women on the probably your audience. So we're all high functioning women. And when I changed and my energy started to change and I started to heal and I got so deeply involved in the work of life. And when I talk about the work of life, the work and life are the same thing. We
Uh-huh.
can't separate it out. And the work for me of life is always recognizing that half second where I'm about to leave myself, because that's the conditioning. Those are the limitations that we learned as little children. And then we just layered on top as we went through life the same conditioning. And some of those layers, Yvonne, are thin. We can like break through them quickly, but some of those layers are really thick and we have to keep revisiting that layer. It's like, I used to describe it early on in this journey after I had my, what I call my, I was like a pressure cooker. I was wound so friggin' tight. And when I had my explosion on the bathroom floor after the surgery, and I was in the middle of radiation treatments, when God took me down in this way that was just life altering, I called it, I think it was like a near death experience, actually, because I came out of that like a different human being, and I didn't even know what that was. But that was the journey then that he put me on to learn all of these tools, the energy work, because before that, and the breath work.
I love in the book where several times you say, just stop for a second and notice how this feels in your body. I've got one up in the book right now. It says, before you keep reading, pause, feel your feet, look around the room, let your eyes land on something solid. You are here now. This body is not back there. Nothing needs to be understood in this moment. Just notice that you are still here. And you do that. You've got those little breaks in the book frequently, which I love. And that is actually that little section. I do that. I learned it from my husband had a friend who was he was in AA, and he would always say that one of the things that grounded him was to just ask himself, where are my feet right now?
Mm,
And that's what you did. You said,
yeah,
feel your feet.
feel your
And
feet.
it is so grounding to do that. That is the work. There's something else you said in the book that was about, I always say that this work is not one and done.
No.
And it was that kind of an idea. You said, don't be surprised if the work cycles back around and you meet it again. That's not failure, that's integration.
That's right. And those are the layers that I said were really thick. They come back again until we get through them.
Yeah.
And for me, the layers are like the veil. But okay, so to go back to that, it's naming the invisible pattern, right? That's what you're talking about. We have to recognize that within ourselves. And once we see that pattern within ourselves, we can't unsee it. And that's when it starts to become, there it is again, and there it is again, and there it is again. And eventually, and sometimes they're rapid and they're a lot, but they slow down after several years, right? And I don't notice them as much because that's the integration work. Those things don't trigger me anymore. They don't bother you. They don't set you off like going, I'm on alert looking around for danger anymore. And that's
Yeah.
really what the work is about, being here in the present moment, connected to your body, because we can't think our way out of it. We have to feel our way out of it. That's the whole point. This is a feeling game, right? And the
That's why I'm
body,
focused so much on play, because
yes,
when I am able to tap into playfulness, whether I'm actually playing like on my roller skates or hula hooping or whatever, or if I'm just, or even if I'm working and I'm able to go, wait a minute, Yvonne, you're grinding again, and this is work you love. Just a little reminder, you get to do this. You don't have to do this. Nobody's asking you to produce a podcast.
right,
You know,
exactly.
I'd
And when
love
it,
to. Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt.
no, I'm interrupting you. It's so fun because we are all just a bunch of big children, right? We're
Yeah,
adult children. And we forget that, And I think meeting your little girl, meeting your inner child, meeting my teenager, and bringing them along on the ride with me. Otherwise, we're always fighting them. It's
yeah.
like, because I didn't like my teenager, the things I did, ashamed of it. We carry that with us. Not anymore. It's like she is part of it. She's the fun part, the one who did all that.
The one who got into trouble was pushing boundaries. I love too that in chapter 3, I think it is, that you defined what the work isn't. And
Mm.
I'm gonna quote you.
Okay.
This is a little long, but I love this. This is not a manual for getting your children back. It's not a script to win your mother's approval, your ex's respect, your church's validation, or your family's applause.
Mm.
You went on to say, we are not here to assign villains and victims. Some caused harm, like you list your parents, your kids, your pastors, your partners, your friends. Some caused harm, some tried and failed, and some were doing the best they could with their own fractures, screaming in the background. Oh, what an image. This
Mm.
work won't erase what happened, but it also won't let your life be defined by who did or didn't show up for you. We're not here to rewrite the past so it hurts less.
Yes,
I
right?
was like, what?
It's so good, right? And
Yeah.
that's what we struggle with. We don't know how to do that. We don't know how to release that. We don't know how to liberate those emotions that are stuck in our bodies. And there are so many people out there saying, if you do, and I'm not, I mean, I love all the therapies. I love tapping. I love EMDR. I love it all. But
Everything can work at some point. Like,
yes,
yes, yes.
but we need to be able to liberate that, and to do that we have to be able to pull ourselves back to the present. That's where the power is, right? The power is in the present. It's not anywhere else, and it's certainly not out there looking for validation and approval and all the things out there. I want to be able to breathe and come right back here, and that's the work. So the work is so simple, but until we get to it, until we stay with it, this is about staying and staying and staying and staying until it becomes our new operating system. Like we
Yeah.
could actually replace that operating system that we all
Ooh,
grew up with.
so I love that you're bringing up the operating system and you get into that in the book. Can you speak a little bit to, as you do in the book, to the decisions that we made as kids to be safe? Like we were smart, right? We made some decisions to get through
To
some
be safe.
situations, right? And then we kick ourselves now for what we're still doing that doesn't work anymore. And is that the operating system that you're
That
talking
is
about?
the operating system. And that operating system, see, the thing about the operating system is that I believe it's initiated at birth. And I've talked to women that have similar experience, the fears of our mothers. And that came from in the womb. My
Mm.
mother was, she was that World War II baby. They lived during the Depression. She feared her father. Was she abused? I don't know because they didn't talk about it. But all those fears, they transfer right into that fetus.
What do they
It,
call that? Generational trauma or
or
something?
generational
Is
trauma,
that the
sure. Yeah.
phrase?
So we're all traumatized by the generations that came before us. It just passes on. They didn't know how to fix it. They just kept trying to do the best they could, right? The conversation now has finally exploded, and we know things about the way the body works, the way the brain works, the way we hold on to that trauma, and what it takes to free it. I mean, I don't know if you want me to tell you this story or not, but so when I was 31, my brother lost his life to a drug overdose. And 6 months later, my mother died. And 3 months later, my father died. I moved my
Mm.
family across the country. I went through a hurricane on Long Island, all the things like, those life changing
That's a
events.
lot,
I
Vera.
had seven in 11 months' time.
Oh
And
my
I never
gosh.
cried again after that. I shut it down. I was completely emotionally unavailable. I was high functioning. My children had everything they needed. They did all the things, but they didn't have an emotional mother who is, loving and like, oh, come here, baby, because I had to keep them safe. That was my energy. And
Wow.
because I never had a chance to grieve them, and then I shut it down when I finally broke on the bathroom floor. They came to visit me shortly after that.
Talk about breaking on the bathroom floor because I think earlier we almost started to go there and then we didn't. So I
It, you
think
know,
that's an important moment for you.
well, it was a huge moment. It was a life-changing moment for me. It was after the surgery. Uh, I was sitting in my chair. I was having a little radiation therapy. They told me there were no side effects to it. So I'm sitting in my chair watching TV. My husband was asleep, and I started to feel weird. And I was like, "Oh, what is that?" I didn't know if I had to throw up or go to the bathroom or what. And I ran into the bathroom where the air sucked out of the room, and I stripped naked, and I had no energy, and I was on my knees over the tub, and I was saying, "What is happening to my life?" And I couldn't even. I had no voice. I couldn't call for my husband. I was like, I was stuck. And then God said to me, like I didn't hear his voice. I felt it in my body. Enough, Vera. Enough was all I kept hearing. And then I heard something that I heard, use all the tools. And I'm going, what the fuck? Use all the tools? Like, what does this mean? And I don't know how long I was on the bathroom floor. I honestly don't. But eventually I stood up, And I took a deep breath and I stepped out of the bathroom. And for the next 3 days, I almost forgot about it. I went to Phoenix, I saw my grandkids. And when I was on my way home, this is how the universe works, right? I was on my way home from Phoenix and my phone rang. And I answered my phone, and it was the doctor's office rescheduling my final radiation treatment. And I said to the nurse on the phone, I said, "Oh, you know what? About the radiation, I'm not doing it anymore." I said, because I had such an awful reaction Friday night to the radiation. I said, I thought I was going to die and I'm not doing it anymore. And the nurse got scared. She was like, okay, hang on a second. And she came back on the phone a minute later and she said, Dr. Busima said, she doesn't know what that was, but it has nothing to do with radiation and you need to finish the treatments. And I was like, okay. Like, I need somebody to talk to me like that because I will say, yeah, no, screw that. I'm not doing it. So I promised her I would finish the treatments. And from there, all the tools started to come into my life. I started to experience sound therapy and breath work, and then I got involved in the energy work.
I noticed throughout the book that you do mention God and faith and spirit a lot. In fact, I'm going to pull another quote. You said you might secretly worry that if you stop abandoning yourself, you'll become selfish, that you'll lose everyone, that you'll walk away from relationships you're supposed to keep, that you'll
Mm.
disappoint God.
Mm.
I read that and I was like, wow, because we
Mm.
make all these decisions as little people to stay safe, to belong, right? And then we carry that operating system around because it worked, and then we carry it beyond its usefulness.
Mhm.
And that's when the people pleasing is happening, right? I see so much
Right.
of what you're talking about in this book as a freeing up from that people pleasing, but we do worry that we're going to lose people, that we're going to lose belonging in that. That are we going to disappoint or make God angry? I was raised Catholic, and
Yes.
I have faith that there is something bigger than me.
And all those fears, we all carry them. And like you, I was raised a little Catholic girl too, right? And it didn't do me any good because it just kept me in more fear. So whether you call him God or the universe or the creator or the divine, believing in something bigger is really what it's about. And it's the human condition, and that's the healing of ourself. We can give all the compassion, all the love, all the forgiveness to everybody else. But until we can give that to ourselves, where we can free the channel so God could actually speak to us. And how do we listen to God? We don't listen to him in our head. We listen to him in our body. When it vibrates yes, when it vibrates no, we know. And when we're not in connection, we override that. The head overrides the body. The head says, I know better, because the head wants to keep you safe, but the body is giving you a different signal. And once we could connect into that energy, every relationship changes. When the relationship we have with ourselves, when the relationship I had with myself changed, I was able to heal the relationship between me and my daughter. That was very strained because, like I said, I was so afraid. I was unemotionally unavailable. They had everything, but they didn't have me.
Mm.
And that creates barriers. And it created barriers with everybody in my life. I often think, how did I find a husband? I've been married 43 years this year. He never left me. Like, he got in. You think that's not
Congratulations.
divine timing? That's like divine.
He got in, he
He
stayed
got
in.
in and he stayed.
Bless him. That's amazing.
And even that relationship, although my husband is still, he doesn't want to hear anything I'm talking about. He's like, whatever, you do your thing, Vera. It's awesome. But I still see a little bit of change in him because it has to wear off eventually. That better energy, that positive energy, it just
Yeah.
shifts. So one of the
People
things,
are only ready to hear stuff when they're ready to hear stuff. That was another thing. Another quote from your book that I'm going to pull. You said resist the urge to weaponize this language. Don't
yes,
diagnose your mother, your ex, your pastor, your child.
right,
Not yet. Start with you,
start with you. It's
because
all
that's
about
what we
you.
tend to do, right? Well, I have figured out this thing, and now let me share it with you. And now you must do what I
That's
think
right.
is right.
That's right. No, and it doesn't work that way. If it only worked that way, I can't manage my own life
Right?
sometimes. How do I expect to manage everybody else's life? But that's the control part of it.
Yeah.
We want to control everything because we want to be safe. And we think if we're not controlling, we're not safe. And when we can get in and do this kind of deeper work, you know,
Yeah.
and really stay with it, it's not a weekend workshop. It's a practice of life. That's why I say life and work are one and the same. But most people are doing the wrong work. They're thinking, how could I fix it? I have to do more. How can I make it better? What do I have to buy? What do I have to blah, 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 blah? No. And you know what happens when you figure out the work? You sleep better. You eat better. You have less aches in your body. We're all energy. And the work is staying in the energy.
Yeah.
Right? It's trusting the energy. It's trusting yourself. It's trusting that we can find our own intuition, our own wisdom, our own discernment, because women outsource that. How many times did you have a problem and you call your girlfriend who's in worse shape in life than you are? Right? But why don't we trust our own
Right.
intuition? Because we've been disconnected from it since we were little kids. And it's no easy journey getting back into connection with yourself. You can't, I mean, maybe some people could go to a weekend workshop and, get it, but I don't think it works that way. You might get it, but then you have to stay, like I said before, and stay and bring the practice back and bring it back until it
Absolutely. I've
becomes.
had moments of like when I meditate, I've had some moments of like, oh, whoa, that was a good one.
Yeah,
Not all the time for sure, but every now and
no.
then, whoa, that was really something. And then you're back to life and chopping wood and washing dishes and doing the things. And then you get into the old operating system again, right? It is having to constantly catch myself over and over and
Cultivate
over.
the new operating system. It's so incredible when we do that, and when we don't do it and we notice, oh, wait a minute. What do I have to do to bring that back? It's a
Yeah.
remembering. The whole game is a remembering that I have the power to take that breath and bring myself right back here. And that's what the 7 minute, I give away that 7 minute free breath work because it's, you could do it anywhere. Like you don't have to be in a quiet, silent I don't meditate like this. I meditate like this.
Anybody for anybody who's not watching the video right now, who's listening, Vera just did a whole little dance. That was great. That was great. Hands
Well,
up
because
in the air, waving around.
that's meditation. It's somatic. It's in the body. It's how we move. It's how we breathe. It's how we do everything. And it becomes part of you. So if you step at and 7 years later, I could say when I step out of that space is rarely now. Not that it's perfect, and things still come in sometimes that want to pull me out, but I recognize it almost immediately. I go, there it is again.
Hello again.
And I
So
think,
if somebody recognizes themselves in what you've described as this high functioning disconnect and doesn't know where to start, what would you say is like the first thing to do or I guess not to do, right? This is not about doing. I don't know. Do you know what I'm trying to ask, Vera?
no, the first thing to do is just take a breath and feel your body, right?
Mm,
Like you could do that right now. Like wherever you are, whether you're driving your car, washing your dishes, in the middle of an argument, if you could remember, right? So it's a remembering
hmm
to just take a breath because we do it all the time. But let this breath be a remembering of connecting back into your body. What do I feel? Is my breath shallow? Am I clenched somewhere? Like, am I tight? What's happening here? Right? That I
Yeah.
could release in the next breath and let the
I'm doing it
energy,
right now as you talk. I'm
right?
like, oh, let those shoulders go, Yvonne. Let them go.
Yeah.
Sometimes I find myself so clenched. It's like as if I'm gonna hold my body together from like spontaneously exploding. Like, what am I doing? Like, I don't have to hold my body together. My body's not gonna explode, but that's the way I'm acting. That all everything's all tensed up and
Right. And
right,
you can get that way and nothing is happening around you that
right.
causes it either.
Oh yeah,
That's
no.
that's that internal wiring that's been holding tight like that since we're little kids, sometimes from in the womb, like I said. It just gets triggered that way. When I call it the tripwire. I don't write about that in this book, but it's we trip that wire at some point in our life when we're very young, and 99% of us trip onto the fear side.
Mm.
We don't ever trip onto the positive side. We always trip onto fear. How am I being perceived? Am I safe here? Am I safe here?
Sure,
Those are
and
the
fear
things.
serves a purpose, right? Like it
Well,
does keep us alive. It's a useful thing, but it's not useful when it's ongoing and
when it's
continual and an unnecessary situation.
and that's how most of us live our lives.
Yeah.
Scanning, scanning for danger.
Yeah.
Scanning the world for danger. I used to put my kids to bed at 7 o'clock. My poor kids, they were little. They would go, "Why do we have to go to bed so early? It's still light out. The kids are still playing in the street." And I would say, "You know what? It's okay for them to stay in the street at this time, but for us, we go to bed." Because when my kids were in the house, in the bed, sleeping, was really the only time I ever took a breath during the day. Because when they were awake, I had to keep them alive. And
Mm.
as long as I kept them alive today, I had a good day. And that was fear was unreasonable. I had a
Yeah.
nice house, I had a good husband, I had a place, but my own fear did that. And how
Wow.
sad for them, right? For our children to grow up with that kind of fear. So we always give our children a fear, whether we want to or not.
What do you want this book to do for the women who read it?
Oh, but I want this book to open them up so that they know they don't have to keep living that way. I really want people to find their own freedom and liberation, because this is how we're going to heal the world. We're not going to heal the world by telling anybody else what to do. We're going to heal the world by connecting back into our own truth and recognizing that and saying, wow, I deserve to be here. My voice deserves to be heard. They don't have to live the way they've been living in fear.
Before we go, how do people find you and stay in touch with you?
You can find me on Facebook. I should pop right up. I'm Vera Knight.
Okay.
And if you want my website, it's Vera Knight. That's Knight with a K, KNIGHT dot live, LIVE. So Vera Knight
Perfect.
dot live, and you could contact me there.
That is fantastic. Vera, thank you so much. I feel like we could have kept going because there was so much juicy stuff in this conversation. For those of you listening here all the way to the end, if this hit home for you and it makes you think of somebody else, share it with them. You know the woman I'm talking about, the one who's been fine for too long? Yeah, send it to her. All right, loves, until next time, bloom like you mean it.